Hi, and welcome to this week's Karma Cards. If you're done with the week because of the full moon, we still got to work through this. So let me explain. That full moon in Aquarius that we had on Monday, that was no joke. There were 8 planets activated in 2 T-squares, and a square in astrology is talking about tension, something coming up against something else in order to create a different kind of energy. It's called breakthrough energy. And we had the sun, the moon, Venus, Saturn, Uranus, Mercury retrograde, Jupiter, and Mars all activated. That's not the alignment that they were in, but they were all activated. And basically it was a breakthrough energy. And it was really is really disruptive because we still have the sun squaring Uranus. That's really strong aspect happening today. This is Wednesday, August 21st when I'm recording it. So the sun represents the energy of being, and Uranus is the plot twist, the shakeup. And so part of that is there's this energy of like, this isn't working. I need to do something new and different, and maybe feeling like, I don't know what that is, or maybe something is being forced to feel new and different, like it's happening to you rather than you choosing it. And so that's a tense energy that we're currently in, but that was part of the T-square that was happening before. So Uranus was highly activated with that full moon in Aquarius, and that was a super blue full moon. So it was very big. It was the blue is referring to the fact that it was an extra moon within a season that we were in this season rather. And Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is this disruptive plot twist planet, and you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how the plot is going to twist for you. So sometimes it can look like things are being destroyed when actually things are being created, or it can look like this will be really fun and then it ends up being more intense than you thought it was. So that it can go any old way. That's what Uranus promises, is that you won't understand or see what's coming until you're in the middle of it. But it does promise a breakthrough, and squares, those tension points, are necessary for us to create change and move forward in the way that we truly desire, if we can ride through it. But this was just a particularly intense combination of energy, and it's still playing out to some degree. So you might feel like you just went on a really intense ride, like a G-force ride. Remember those, the Galvatron? I don't know if you remember that one. I hate the Galvatron, but that's that ride that you see at some fairs where as it spins, you're sort of pressed against the wall because of the G-force, and then the things slide up and down. Feels like you just got out of one of those, and you're still spinning. That's the kind of energy that we're inside right now. Now, tomorrow on the 22nd, the sun will transition into the sign of Virgo, and hopefully that energy will help anchor us a little bit more, because it is a earth sign. So it'll bring us back to the ground, give us that balance that we need, and hopefully activate some strategy, kind of help us clean up the debris, if you will, from that tornado of all that Uranus energy, because it's left something in its wake for you to clean up. And we're moving into a season that's really good about organizing, getting things together, cutting out the unnecessary, and getting back on a healthy track. That's what Virgo season brings to us. So I'm looking forward to that energy. I feel like it's much needed after that whirlwind. And there was a lot of air element has been activated because of the planetary placement with so many planets in air signs, that we're feeling that it is an ungrounded and can be a very dizzying feeling. So we're sort of like getting off that ride, and we're still like, woo, teeter-tottery. You might feel it. Like I'm definitely feeling it. And even though there's nothing particularly hard about showing up, it just feels like you're dizzy and ungrounded, and that can make just doing your normal task a challenge. Now, the message I have from the team this week just kind of reconfirms what energy has already shown us. I was really hoping they'd give us something like soft and nurturing, but no, the message that comes up is talking about the Five of Wands, which is this struggle. It's a change. So fives represent change, but there's a struggle to create at this time because there's a struggle to create at this time because it feels like something is working against you. Now, if you're not in that space where you're like, no, I feel like things are working pretty well, then it's not a big struggle for you. Look at the little things, right? It doesn't always have to be something that's like, my life is being broken open. It's not always like that. It might just be like, I'm having a struggle, communicating something right now. Mercury retrograde, right? Or I'm having a struggle getting my point across or getting this idea nailed down. That might be it. Or it could be like, I'm trying really hard to make ends meet, make things work. And it's like, no matter how hard I work at holding on, something is pulling it apart. It feels like it almost feels like an attack type energy, or that's how it could be perceived. Which can bring you sort of to a breaking point of, do I just let go because I cannot get these two ends to meet? So it's not everyone is having the extreme, but everyone's on this scale, right? Either it's a minor thing all the way up to this, like my arms are being pulled out of my body as I hold on. So what they're letting us know is it has to happen. There's a change that's happening. It's a change that's underway. There is an elimination occurring at this time. It is for your highest good, whether or not it looks like it. Maybe you're holding on to something that is just, it can't go with you for whatever reason. It's not your path, right? And you were told by your team and spirit, walk this path if you want to, but we have this other one that you said you would do. So we're going to get to this one over here eventually. And the closer we get to a critical point, this has to come into play. So it's kind of like, it kind of reminds me like when my kids like to go through the recycling, and my son especially, he loves to go into the recycling and he makes really cool crafts out of. This kid is so inventive. He's made like characters from games he likes, or he's made like a vending machine. The most recent one was he made a little vending machine, and they're just, there's cereal boxes, cardboard boxes, all sorts of things he can find, he'll put together. And yet he's very inventive and very prolific in his invention. So we can't keep them all. And that's the kind of deal. That's kind of how your team is talking to you, is how I talk to him about these certain inventions. There's some that if he's really attached to it, we try to work out how we could keep that or memorialize it, like take a video of it in action or take photos of it. But he knows that if he's making things from the garbage, that eventually they have to go back into the garbage, because otherwise his room would be overflowing with recycled items. And so he makes it, but he knows that he's going to have to let it go. That's the kind of thing I feel like is a message that's happening for people right now. Enjoy it. You enjoyed it, but now it's time to let it go, right? You cannot take this recycled vending machine contraption that you made and keep it, because it's served its purpose, but it's now it's just taking up space. And ultimately, in the ranking or hierarchy of what is truly important to you, it's kind of low on the totem pole, right? You'd rather keep this over this. So it's that sort of reckoning point of like, now it's time to let it go. And that is hard. That is hard, especially if you're attached to it. And so we are going through a major wave of practicing detachment, and it's not always fun. Sometimes it's easy. In some areas, it might be very easy for you to let things go. And in other areas, you will find that as they ask you to detach, and I'll tell you why, as they ask you to detach, you're having a lot of emotions come up for you of just the disappointment, the frustration, the anger, the fear, the overwhelm, whatever it is that's coming up, because it doesn't feel fair. And from the perspective of, I work so hard on this, yes, it might not feel fair, but ultimately there was this knowing, or even if it's at a deep subconscious level, there's a knowing that there's something else that I am really meant for, or that's meant to hold this space that this other thing is taking up. And so that's a hard lesson. It's hard. And I can't imagine being on the spiritual side. I mean, they're very good at like holding the space and loving us, and they don't take anything personally. So maybe they have a completely different perspective. But as the parent who has to sort of put down the foot and lay down the law, it's still really difficult because you understand there's empathy there for, I understand that this is hard, and yet this is the right thing to do. We're at that point. Now, why are we at this point where they're asking us to detach and let go and surrender and stop struggling against this? What is that about? And what's coming through in my channelings at this time is that you need to detach because we're getting closer and closer to this big culmination of energy event, and these things can't go with you. There's something about whatever it is you're struggling with that is attached to a lower plane that you're leaving. It can't come with you. It's like it's part of that plane somehow, and you're going somewhere else where this doesn't go, right? Like it's just like if we were moving house and I let him keep all his things. When we move, they can't go with you. That's too much, right? It's unnecessary. It's not going to be part of the new space. They're just, they have a finite life, these things that we feel are being pulled. It can be really tricky because, I'm not sure what it is for you, whether it's relationships, which that one I think would be the hardest. That doesn't mean that the beings, the people aren't going to be there with you. It's just that relationship, the way that it is, the energy of the relationship cannot remain that way. It cannot remain so, like for example, codependent relationships would be one where you can't have the codependency. You can have the relationship, but not the codependency. That's got to shift, right? You can have the relationship, but not the toxicity. That's got to shift. So that's something you might be looking at, or you might be looking at businesses or employment where things are shifting and changing, and it's hard when you have put so much into something to find out that this is something that has to shift. So we're not at an easy point. And again, I want to emphasize and stress, not everyone is going to experience the most intense level of this, because when I talk to people about this, there are people who are experiencing a more intense version and some who are not. This idea that we're all going to go through the same thing, that doesn't clock, because not all of us have the same spiritual contracts. Not all of us are doing things at a certain level that we preordained before we got here because we needed to learn something. And so you really can't look around and be like, well, this person's doing great. Why do I have to struggle if they're doing great? The question lies within how is it teaching you? What is it serving you? What their experience isn't really about what your experience is. And so rather than doing a comparison and saying, hey, I must be doing something wrong because I'm experiencing so much struggle, or it's not fair that some people don't seem to struggle as much right now. So I must, something's not right here. I shouldn't be struggling. They're not struggling. It's highly personal. And I wish there was sort of like a blanket bar for this. There's just not, because everybody's at a different point. Different experiences trigger growth in different people, where some people are triggered more on a spiritual level. Some others are triggered on the material level, where some are triggered more in relationship. Others are triggered more in business, right? So it's not going to play out the same for all of us, and it's not going to play out at the same intensity. That may be because all along somebody has been detaching and practicing that and going through it step by step, where others held on to the last second because they were like, no, I really love this creation. I really love this experience, or I am really identifying myself with this experience more than another person is. That kind of shows the level of intensity for people. So again, I want to assure you, you haven't done anything wrong. There is no punishment. There is no person who did it better and you did it worse or vice versa. It is based on where you are at, how attached you are to something, and how much it will help you grow and transform. Many times, the biggest catalyst in our life are the most transformative, magical, breakthrough energy we could have. Does not feel good going through it, but on the other side, you were like, I don't know if I would trade that because of this, because I have broke through to this new awareness or this level of peace or understanding or wisdom or whatever it's given you. Many times that big painful breakthrough gave you an incredible gift that you were like, I'm signed up for that. Like I would go through a little hell for that. So you just don't know. So rather than trying to judge or compare, we've got to practice trust the journey. I work with people who are working on that trust, and a lot of times their willingness to trust is a little conditional. And what I mean by that is like, well, if I trust myself or I trust my soul more, that means things will work out and I won't have pain and I won't have conflict and I won't have negative catalyst. And it's like, that's not how this realm works. It's 50-50. You get 50% positive, 50% negative. The weight of those is variable, meaning like it's not always the worst negative experience you could have. It's not always the minimalist positive experience. You'll get a variable, but you will get 50-50. And so therefore, just because you trust yourself doesn't mean that you're avoiding or circumventing the catalyst you must go through. And catalyst is neutral. It could be positive, it could be negative. You're going to get one or the other, and there's always the 50-50 chance. Can you get through this life without experiencing negative catalyst? No, because you might be walking a perfectly straight line. And that's another thing I'm seeing. And people are like, I'm trying my best, right? I don't want this negative catalyst. And you could be trying to do it perfect. You don't know that negative catalyst that's coming for you could be a soul contract with someone else. So it's not that you brought it on. It was that you agreed to help another person by being in a catalytic experience with them that they might trigger, or you might accidentally trigger. You don't know, right? It just trying to control what catalyst you get it's a game of futility, because that's not your part to control. Your part is, how am I responding or reacting to this? What am I going to take from it? What am I going to learn from it? How am I going to adjust based on what I get? And how am I going to interpret it? All of that is under your control. How am I going to move through this is completely under your control. The catalyst has been set. It's already set. It's part of the program, if you will. If we're playing a video game, which, you know, they often allude to this being a simulation, the video game is one of the best metaphors. The catalyst in the video game is set. You don't get to, you know, log into a game and then create the catalyst that's coming. You just agree to play, and you get to pick your character, and you get to pick your strengths, and you get to pick the things that come with you and how you use it and your tactics and strategies and all of that. But the catalysts are out there. The dragons are going to be in the woods to slay. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. I don't play very many video games, but you get my point. The catalyst is set. So this card is saying, stop trying to fight it. Stop trying to fight it. That's part of why you're suffering. You're suffering because you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on, why do I have catalyst? Because you're in a game. That's all the universe can give you back. That's all your team can tell you. Why do I have to experience this? Because you chose it. That's not a satisfying answer, right? And this is where we need to start asking smart questions. Why am I experiencing catalyst is not a smart question, because it cannot give you new information, especially if you've already asked it, right? If you asked why and you hear because I've chosen this, because you chose this life, that's about as far as you can go. So you're not going to get much more information. But if you ask, how do I maneuver through this catalyst where I can experience more of a pleasant or beneficial or peaceful or happy or whatever successful outcome? How can I navigate through this catalyst to experience a more successful outcome? That's a smart question, because now you can get information. Now you're going to start hearing from your internal self, your higher self, the instruction that would allow you to move through this moment with more success. And it's tough sometimes when we're in the throes of it, like right now, to remember to ask the smart question, because we get so overwhelmed, because we're getting emotional about it, we're getting attached to it, or we're struggling against it, and that suffering that takes us out of the critical thinking mind, which thankfully, like I said, tomorrow Virgo season really activates that for us. So we've got friends, we've got friends energetically helping us to shake it off and get clear and really look at the strategy or the organization of it rather than wallowing in the emotion of it. And so the team is just letting you know, stop questioning the catalyst. It's part of the game. Remember how games are made. You agreed to that. You saw it when you went to sign up to be here, and you were like, oh, that looks cool. Let's try it. Let's see how this one goes. It's already designed. Everyone's is a little different. It's based on the avatar you've chosen and the qualities of that avatar, which you are now experiencing. And rather than focusing on how do I avoid it, well, do you want to play the game because you're here, you're in the game? Rather, what strategy can I use? Give me a strategy that I can use to successfully move through this. And with that, let's look at this week's karma cards. Before we get into karma cards, after receiving that, I feel both inspired and a little like I feel less frustrated than when I shared that message. I feel a little frustrated, but more inspired. And I'm like, oh, in my own life, I can see, yeah, I've been really concentrating on being pissed off about the catalyst or how hard it feels rather than focusing on what's my path of success through this. So I just want to share that with you in case you're also feeling that too. The point is to empower ourselves through asking the right questions. Our team, it's kind of like phone a friend, it's like they can't just give you the answer. You have to ask the question that allows them to give you the answer. So, smart questions. I love it. Okay, so now let's look at karma cards. If you're new to karma cards, let me quickly tell you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message for this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel, what is the guidance I need right now? Am I looking for action related guidance or how things resolve? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're choosing, here is the timing for this reading. This reading is for August 21st through the 28th, which I cannot believe we're at the end of August, but here we are. And the flavor of this reading, we got Mars. Mars is one of the planets that's been very active and very agitated because it's the planet of passion and frustration. So if you've been feeling frustration, thanks to Mars. Action, sometimes frustration. It really wants to just cut through it and get it done. So we've got this energy lighting up in the sign of Leo, which is where our sun is currently now and about to leave. So there is this fiery leadership energy. So you put Mars and Leo together. Leo's a fire sign. Mars rules Aries. You got a lot of like headstrong, balls to the wall energy in first house, the house of self and self-expression and self-image, self-identity. That avatar I was talking about before would be considered the first house. For those who are choosing action, your spiritual action is to energize leadership immediately. I forgot to mention the first house is ruled by Aries. So this is all fire, all fire. So, wow, you can hear it's like, do it now, like leadership. Okay, so leadership, one of the biggest keys in leadership is accountability, right? Because I'm owning it. So if I stop railing against the experience I'm having and I start owning it, I start to feel empowered. So even though they're like, you got to throw it out. I'm so sorry. You got to let it go. You got to detach. That's going to go. I told you it was going to go. Now it's going. Let it go. And that might be one of those feelings of like, no, I'm not ready. I wasn't done. I'm still working on it. You don't get to choose the timing on this. It's being chosen for us, but you can hold it accountable. Be like, I was ready for this. Like in the back of my mind, I knew this was coming and I'm okay with it because I know I signed up for something that is going to accelerate me forward in my growth. That's what I really want. That's the bigger game. That's the game board we don't see, but that's the one that collects the real points. So what I mean by that, in the Law of One, they talk about this game board idea. And the game board is like, there's a lower game board where it's like the game of life, where you think that the goal is to marry the spouse, have the kids, get the house, get the money, go on the vacations. Yay, I won the game of life. I collected all the things. That's the lower game board. It's the illusion and it's fake. The upper game board is the game of ethics and morality. It's like, how did you get that money? How did you treat those children? How did you treat your spouse? Right? Like, what did you do to improve not just your own life, but the lives of others around you? Like, how did you contribute in a greater way? Those are the things that really give you the points. And so all they're getting us to do at this point is detach more from the lower game board, from the illusion board, where nothing actually, all those things that you think are the things are actually just illusory things for you to sort of progress to, but also it is how you do it infers what the lower game board, or the upper game board rather, is collecting from you, like how many of those spiritual points that are progressing you forward. So own this, own the fact that whatever's happening, it's part of the design of the avatar you've picked, and it's going to move you forward and get you some more spiritual points. So understanding that whatever is illusory that pulls away has nothing to do with what's real. Mental action at this time, confront the creativeness of the way you project yourself. Yeah, so you get to choose. You get to choose the character you're playing right now. You get to choose what it looks like as you go through this. You cannot decide the catalyst. You can decide whether or not you are the victim energy, or you're the victor energy, or you're the peaceful warrior, or all sorts of ways that you're going through this. This is happening to me. Something, something's being taken from me. How mean, how unfair. That's one way you can project yourself. The other way is like, whoa, what am I being prepared for? Like, what if this is all actually for my highest good and it's leading me to something greater than I can understand? That's another way that we can sort of, how we decide things are moving forward for us, also informs what we start to project. Because think about it, if life is working against you and it makes you angrier, makes you more reactive, suddenly you start seeing that everywhere. Like, you're attacking me and this is attacking me and the prices at the grocery store are attacking me, right? I'm such a victim of all these bad things. Well, that's going to change what projects out of you, versus someone who is owning that and going, what if this is the best thing that could happen for me? What if something really good is coming and I'm being prepared for it? Well, there's a different energy being projected there. There's a sovereignty and a lightness at the same time that comes through. So they're just asking us to be aware of that. You are creating that by how you are viewing it. Physical action at this time, force yourself to do what you want to and do it on your own. This one is a really, based on what we've been talking about, it almost feels like counter information. So as I sit with it, you get to play the game how you want. The catalyst is set, but you get to play the game how you want. No one's going to change it for you, including your team and spirit. So the do it on your own part, it doesn't mean they're not there, and it doesn't mean they're not supporting you. It just means they're not going to choose for you. If they could, maybe they would choose something easier for you, but they can't, and they won't, because it's your game to play. They signed up to be support, not the leader. You're the leader. Ultimately, the Leo card's like, do what you want to. Look, nothing I say is going to change how you decide to do this. I'm just trying to share information on maybe the easier path, or the path that will feel like less suffering. But ultimately, you're going to decide. So either you take the information because you decided to take it, or you dismiss it because you're like, yeah, that doesn't pertain to me. That's fine. This is on you. But ultimately you do play. There is no hiding, or, like everybody else should detach, but I have nothing to detach from. There's something, and it will be pulled on. And it's not always a physical aspect. For example, if you're struggling financially, does not mean that money is being pulled away, but how you are attached to it, what you believe about the money, what you believe it means by the amount you're getting. All of that has to be looked at. I have been told that we are not going to be put in a place where we struggle so hard that we can't make it through it, but it will feel like sometimes by the skin of your teeth, like by the skin of your teeth, you made it through that one. Whoo, right? Because again, part of it is how are you attached to this, especially your thoughts, the emotions that those thoughts produce, the behaviors that come out of those emotions, right? And the choices you make. These are the attachment points. So those are the things that are really getting worked on. And yes, sometimes physical aspects that are connected to this, you need to detach, will move around on you. Like the person won't be as available, or there will be an argument that kind of creates distance or space, or the funds seem to dwindle and don't pick up the way you expect them to, and you will have to deal with the attachment around that. It doesn't mean that the people get taken away or the resources get taken away. Only how you relate to them change, or must change. Now let's look at outcomes for Mars in Leos in the first house of self. Your spiritual outcome at this time is the drive for self-confidence to create who you are. Yeah, so what I'm getting from this is, like, during this window, you hopefully get messages like this one, and you get them frequently, and it causes you to sort of like dust yourself off and stand back up and claim your power again. Like, that's what I would love for all of us right now, is to be able to shake off the suffering and the struggle. Doesn't mean the circumstance gets easier. You just shake it off and you're like, I can do this. I can get through this. I can think about this differently. Fine. If that has to go, fine. I trust that something better will be coming in its place, or that by being set free from this, I see the world in a way that really opens me up more. And the ways that are healthy and healing, and even cause me to feel a sense of success. That's what I'm looking at. So again, I feel like there's enough energy right now to sort of shake it off, stand back up, and claim your power. Mental outcome at this time, the confronting of taking a chance on your desires. You got to believe this is happening for you, for it to really help you, okay? The game is predominantly played by your consciousness first. So how you perceive this helps you or hinders you. So remember, victim or victor. You knew on the soul level that this detachment phase was part of moving into the higher realms, that you couldn't stay attached to what's here before you go. A lot of people go through this in the death process, where they they have to detach. You can't take it with you. And until you detach, you don't leave. So when you see people who are sort of laboring over leaving, like maybe you've been there when a loved one was passing over and it was just taking a long time, it's because they had to work through their attachments and they had to learn how to detach so that they could go. So we know that detachment is part of the next phase. However, this isn't to say that there is death. We know, based on all the information, all the research that has been done, all the near-death experiences, all the people who've gone through deep hypnosis and have seen the other side and have seen what is coming for us, you know it's not death that we're dealing with, but we are moving up to higher levels, higher realms, possibly even a different realm, like a physically different realm. We don't fully know, but we will have to do the same process without dying of detaching from this one, because you can't take this one with you. This is a special place of learning, and it's specifically for 3D. We're leaving. We've left. We're in the middle of lower 4D. We've got this lower energy of 4D we're working through, which is a transient energy. It doesn't have a physical component, which is why we can still cohabitate on a 3D plane while being in the fourth density. It's weird, but that's the case. When we go up to higher fourth, we attach to the fifth density plane, which is another physical plane, or it has a physicality, I should say, but it takes us out of this one completely. So in order to go up higher, we have to detach from this one and connect to the higher. So you knew this was coming on a soul level. And the desire that this is talking about is the desire of that soul. So it's not the lower desires of, I want security, I want opulence, I want comfort, I want luxury, or whatever those desires are. It's not the baser desires. It's a purified higher desire. I desire to connect with higher energies within myself and within the collective. That's the desire that it's talking about. Physical outcome at this time. Action resulting from the impressiveness of your actions. Sometimes it's like the Department of Redundancy department, the way these cards read. So actions resulting from the impressiveness of your actions. There's more to do after this. I feel like that's the clean way to say it. There's more. After you make this choice comes another choice to make, right? There's more to do. So after we detach, there's other stuff to do. And the impressiveness is this isn't easy. If it was easy, every time someone would come up to their imminent passing over, they'd be like, okay, see ya on the other side, love ya, and like they'd leave. No, we struggle with our attachments. That's why it's one of the spiritual principles to learn detachment, and it's one that is connected to a lot of fear, because from the ego self, the ego who believes you are this person here, everything that this person relates to, like the house you live in, that gives me security. The money you have, that gives me security. The people who love you, that keeps me connected and loved and secure, right? I can't lose those things. What happens to me after I detach from those? There's a huge rite of passage that you go through with detachment, and that is to face the fear that what is it you believe is going to happen to you if you let this go. And it's tricky because we don't always sense how attached we are until confronted with it. But ultimately, that which is true and real cannot be taken from you. And that includes the ones you love. It's the only real thing here are the relationships, right? There's other souls doing this with you. They're real. They're in the game with you. Everything we're doing in the game, not so much, including how we're related to each other, right? You've heard many people talk about past lives where in this life they're the daughter, but in the past life they were the mother, or, brothers, or even enemies, but now in this life they're lovers, right? The idea of like how we are connected to each other, even that's illusory, But the truth is we're connected to each other. And so the real can't be taken. It won't be detached because it's the only thing that's real. Everything that can be detached is part of an illusion. And this is one of the things that I think people struggle with when it comes to spirituality, because eventually you come up against this and it feels like a wall. And the ego is going to fight you on this because the ego was designed for this illusion. It's like the avatar in your video game. It's designed to be in that environment. So no, it doesn't want to detach. It doesn't want you to detach. It doesn't want you to even really think about it. And when you do, you start to come up to a natural fear. And that's just the ego trying to make sure it's still attached to you. And even that is one of the things that some of us are being asked to detach from, is who you think you are. These things can create a natural sense of fear, but the fear going through that, right? False evidence appearing real, that's the rite of passage point. You can't lose anything that's real. It's already with you. It's always been with you. It's already a part of you. You can't lose yourself. Yourself is immortal. It's there. Now, how you perceive yourself, yes, that'll change. But even this experience, it's not lost. It's stored within your consciousness for all eternity. And so nothing that's real is ever lost. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it and subscribe. It really helps my channel, and I appreciate you so much for doing it. Thank you, thank you. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. Everything that's real stays. All right. Love you.